All right, guys. Under 2 minutes left in the SEC title game. Georgia's up by 20 points. Yeah. Started out pretty slow. Georgia was getting dominated in the first quarter and the first two drives. Really got a blocked field goal, returned it back for a touchdown on an insane play. Ever since then, it was all UGA. First quarter, well, actually, after the blocked touchdown, Georgia gave up a touchdown by Keishawn Boutte, and then went on a 28-0 run, took a 35-10 lead into the half, cruise controlled ever since. Defensively, I will say this, Georgia disappointed in the second half, obviously, giving up over 400 yards passing in this game. Actually, I think they finished this game with 500 yards passing, or 502 yards given up passing wise. It's pretty bad defensively. Keely Ringo played pretty bad. Meeks didn't play up to par. I mean, sorry, not Meeks. Starks didn't play up to par. A lot of the DBs kind of disappointed today. LSU has a pretty good offense. We knew that coming in, but they're more of a rush team, and Georgia completely shut down the run. I told you guys last week and weeks prior that I expected LSU to pass it more, and I expected them to not be able to run the ball, and I was right on that. But I did not expect over 500 yards passing for LSU. Shout out to LSU fans. They fought hard today. They made this more of a game than what it really should have been. LSU fought, like I said, really hard. Scored 30 points on us. First team to do that since, Alabama last year. And the first team, not including Alabama, to do that on us since I can't even remember the last team. Oklahoma, the last non-con team to put up over 30 points on Georgia. In fact, or not non-con, but the last team to do it. Actually, LSU did it back in 2019, and Florida did it 2020. So there's that. But yeah, Georgia's defense obviously always really good. Today just kind of struggled. In fact, did struggle mainly in the third and fourth quarter when Gary Nussmeier came in. I thought his name was Garrett Nussmeier. I don't know why they're calling him Gary because it is Garrett. But he's a redshirt freshman QB, I'm pretty sure. And because he played a little bit last year, was up and down. LSU as a whole last year was up and down, very inconsistent. But even into this year, they were very inconsistent. But he came in and looked really good. I'm not going to lie. Garrett Nussmeier played really well for being a backup QB coming in in the SEC title game here in Atlanta. Yeah, shout out to him. I mean, he had a really good game. I think he got sacked twice in the game. I think we got 3 or 4 sacks in this game. Forced the fumble. Jalen Carter played out of his mind. The interior defensive line, all of them played really well. And offensively, they couldn't stop us. Even when we got up 35-10, come out in the second half, we do score only 2 touchdowns, but we were able to power rush the ball all game. Almost 6 yards per carry on LSU, one of the best defenses in the SEC. I know they struggled last week, especially giving up over 200 yards rushing to Devon Achane. But really, prior to that, their rush defense had been really good all year and was very consistent. Then coming into today, yeah, not something to look forward to if you're an LSU fan with your defense. But again, you did play us, one of the best offensive teams in the country. We just are. Another game. I think that's now 12 games in a row. We've had over 500 yards of total offense. LSU actually edged us in total offense today. They had 550 yards to our 530. So, but Georgia was completely balanced all game. Dominated the time of possession. Again, like I said, Georgia's top 10 in the nation when in that aspect. They do this game in, game out. But most of that coming in the second half where Georgia was already up 25 points. So big win, another ranked win, another kind of convincing, I would say. Win against LSU. LSU, a pretty good team, 9-4 now. Had that huge loss last week. I mean, with what has happened, with what has happened to college football and the landscape of the college football playoff, LSU losing last week, coming into this game, obviously cost them a playoff spot. But even at 10-3, they would have room for a discussion against TCU and Alabama. But I digress with that. LSU, if you're an LSU fan, you got a bright future ahead of you, especially with all those pieces offensively. You're not going to be losing too much, more than likely. And defensively, most of your better players are younger, including Harold Perkins, who didn't really do much today. Let's be real here. But offensively, I was impressed. Obviously, put up 50 points. Going for 2 there midway through the fourth quarter, kind of for no reason. Not sure what that was about. Maybe Kirby just wanted 50 points. That's about all I could say on that. Not sure what that was about, but hey, got it. A.D. Mitchell threw a perfect pass to Darnell Washington, and Darnell Washington finally got a touchdown today. Wait, didn't he? I could have sworn. Yeah, okay. I think that's now his second touchdown of the year. So there's that. But again, spreading the ball out, it's what UGA does. Stetson Bennett had a pretty good game, 23 of 29, 274, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers. Well, they did have that miss exchange in the third quarter. Kenny McIntyre, I don't know what happened there. Kendall Milton averaged almost 15 yards per carry today, 8 carries, 113 yards. How about that? Dewan Edwards came in for relieving here in the second half, 12 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Kenny McIntosh had 55 yards and 2 scores. So, again, Georgia's grounding and pounding. Back, riding that offensive line is what Georgia's best known for. The 2 best offensive lines in the country are probably Michigan and Georgia. To be honest with you, I don't even think it's close after that. And if anyone wants to debate that, go ahead. If you want to tell me Georgia's isn't as good as Michigan's or Georgia's is better than Michigan's, go ahead. But those 2 are the best offensive lines in the nation. And if you've been watching both these teams, they live and die off their offensive line. Their offenses depend on it. See, when they struggle, like Michigan did against Illinois, like Georgia did against Kentucky, their offensive lines kind of struggled for at least the most part in the first half. But anyway, Georgia seeming like we locked up that number 1 seed. I know there were some people thinking that maybe, just maybe, Georgia somehow, some way plays, let's say they would have won this game by 3 points or whatever, and Michigan would have rolled, that maybe they would flip-flop, but Georgia locked that up. Michigan plays Purdue tonight. Purdue's to be honest with you, Purdue's just not a good team. The Big Ten West is terrible. Let's just be real here. I hope Aiden O'Connell plays tonight. I know he's had a little bit of issue earlier in the week. But anyway. But yeah, Michigan, they got their game coming on next. Who's Georgia going to play? My guess is TCU. A lot of people think TCU's not going to fall. I disagree. In fact, I think Alabama does have a shot at making the college football playoff. So there's that. But yeah, hats off to LSU. Down 35-7, made it a much closer game than what it really should have been. And if, we're being honest here, a lot of other teams that Georgia's played I'm not going to say that they gave up necessarily, but it wouldn't have been as close to what it was. Let me get to the comments. GG, Dogs played well. Proud of my Tigers. Could have been a lot closer if we didn't give up that free 7. I would say that was a huge part of the game. LSU's completely dominating the first quarter up to the first 12 minutes. In fact, you had the ball out of the first 12 minutes. You had the ball for like 10 minutes and 50 seconds or something like that. And then after that, it was all UGA. Heads up play by Chris Smith. You go down the next drive because Georgia's defense was literally gassed. I mean, that was like a 14-play, 7-minute drive. LSU was churning the clock, going down at a methodical pace. And you get your touchdown back, but then Georgia's offense kicked it up, and LSU had no answer. The tipped interception was also insane too. That was a huge part of it as well. A pretty lucky play. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, that was a huge deciding factor in how the game was gonna play in the last 4/5 of the game. So yeah, Mark is doing his shows on his main channel. So I think he'll be doing. I don't know. I think he already did the Kansas State TCU game on his channel, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not sure. Good job at UGA. Yep, LSU never gave up. Yeah, that's what I like to see. Brian Kelly's teams, I thought that's what they usually do. They usually play hard till the end of the game. And, even down by a lot, almost 30 points, came out, gave everything they had. Their passing offense looked pretty good. In fact, I like I said earlier on today, give Garrett Nussmeier a lot of credit. I mean, this kid came out of nowhere off the bench and played out of his mind, to be honest with you. He finished with almost 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, averaged 10.9 yards per attempt. I mean, that's as good as it gets, especially from a freshman. Well, technically, I don't think he redshirted last year, which I did say that earlier on, which is technically not true. Because of COVID, they get an extra year. So, but anyway, he played really well. So, he was a former high 4-star recruit, dual threat. I don't remember where he's from. North Carolina? No, he's from Louisiana. So, to be honest with you, I mean, he kind of looked better than Jaden Daniels, but I'm not going to get into that. This isn't an LSU channel. But yeah, that block touchdown was huge. It was a huge momentum shift in the game for sure. But anyways, we got 2 more games on tonight. Make sure you guys, if I'm you guys, I'd definitely watch Michigan. The Clemson North Carolina game is, it's just for placement, I guess, for both teams. Originally, I did take North Carolina, but I don't know. I think that's going to be a pretty good game. I would love to see Purdue compete, but I don't think that's going to be that. Not sure what that was about, but anyways, now I'm off track. Georgia's set to play either TCU or Ohio State. To be honest with you, I think it's going to be TCU, and Georgia's going to, more than likely, like I said, they're number 1. They looked really good for the most part today. We could talk about some of the defensive back issues that I saw today, which were a semi-factor for the future if we do end up playing Ohio State somehow. But I think we're going to play TCU. I think TCU falls at least 1 spot. There's a chance that we do play Alabama, and that would just be, well, I know a lot of people would want to play Alabama because they got 2 losses. A lot of people think they're overrated, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I think out of those 3 teams in that hodgepodge, I think Bama would give us the best game. But anyway, TCU, Alex Duggan's a pretty good QB. Let's just be real here. That guy gave everything he had today. Came up barely short. I mean, after TCU was getting dominated at the line of scrimmage for most of the game, Alex Duggan hung in there and gave it everything he had. That would just be a talent, matchup nightmare for TCU. I know a lot of people love TCU, including me. I like the story. They've had a lot of close calls, a lot of miracle wins. Kind of a lot of luck go their way. Today, that just wasn't it. And in fact, they had probably the best wide receiver in college football in Quentin Johnson, who had like 1,300 yards this year. He had a huge game today. And they have a pretty good rush game. I mean, TCU is a pretty good team, to be honest with you. I don't know if Quentin Johnston, my bad. But he had 800, 900 yards on the year. I forgot he was injured for a couple games. He would have had 1,300 yards. I mean, you can't really guard him one-on-one. Kansas State was trying to do that today with a veteran cornerback, and it wasn't working out. But yeah, I think Georgia, to be honest with you, I think we would pretty much dominate TCU. That would probably be the worst game. We would play them in Atlanta in the Peach Bowl, because there's no way Georgia wouldn't choose the Peach Bowl. Let's be real here. We're going to get whoever we play in Atlanta. If we do play Ohio State, a lot of Georgia fans could feel some type of way because of our pass defense today. 502 yards passing, giving up. It's embarrassing. Like I said, give Garrett Nussmeier a lot of credit. Give even Jaden Daniels some credit. LSU's wide receivers, I thought Jeray Jenkins played well. Malik Neighbors went off. Obviously, Keyshawn Butte. But Ohio State has the best wide receivers in the nation. I mean, Marvin Harrison is probably the best player on Ohio State's team. You could say a healthy Mayan Williams too. But yeah, and Jackson – JXN has not even been playing this entire year, and they're still putting up 50 points per game. But that matchup would be really interesting to see, to be honest with you. Statistically, both teams are obviously really even, but Ohio State, coming off a huge, devastating, emotional loss to Michigan, they got blown out, gave up almost 300 yards rushing. Donovan Edwards just owned them in the fourth quarter. Specifically, because Ohio State did shut down the run for the first half. I mean, they gave up 11 yards rushing. They gave up 11 yards rushing to Michigan in the first half, and they were only up 3. And you could say the same thing if you were an LSU fan, that you would have 500 yards passing on UGA, and you're down and you lost by 20 points. Some of these things just don't make sense, but they happen. But yeah. But yeah, what else is there? Like I said, Bama. There is a shot Bama gets in. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, there's no chance." Well, with USC losing, Bama would jump to number 5. And breaking news, they would only have to jump one spot. So I could definitely see it. I would honestly be upset because, Bama would give us the best game, at least in my opinion. I know Ohio State's a good team. Jim Knowles is a really good defensive coordinator, but I saw what I needed to see against Michigan. And with how good Georgia's offensive line is, hopefully, by the way, Warren McClendon is okay. I think he'll be fine. Same with Ladd McConkey. I think they just held him out. Specifically, Ladd McConkey held him out for a majority of the second half. I didn't really see to be honest with you, the Warren McClendon injury. Of course, I was having internet issues earlier on, so I missed that part. There was 5 minutes. So within that 5 minutes span, I missed that part of the game, which upset me. But it is what it is. But anyway, but yeah, with how good Georgia's offensive line is, it's good enough to compete with any defensive line in the nation. And flip that over with how well Jalen Carter is playing, him specifically. He looks healthy. Yeah, it's CJ Stroud would be in for a long game. But like I said, I expect us to play TCU or Ohio State. I'm really going to go with TCU. I know how the playoff committee doesn't necessarily want to produce rematches in the semifinals. Just put the teams in. I don't understand that, to be honest with you. People said that last year because people somehow thought Georgia would fall to number 4. But yeah, anyway, just put the teams in where they deserve to be. And let's be real here. If we're going based off deserving, Ohio State is not more deserving than a team like Utah or Kansas State, who are conference champions. But again, that means nothing. Comparing a 10-3 team to an 11-1 team, you're always going to take the 11-1 team. based off of performance on the field. Ohio State's just a better team than Kansas State and Utah. Just be honest with you. Yeah, they did have a hiccup against Michigan, but what about their other 11 games when they're also top 3 in the nation in margin of victory? So, nuss bus. That's what I was saying. I was talking to LSU fans. I'm like, dang. To be honest with you, he kind of looks better than Jaden Daniels. This might be an overreaction, to be honest with you. Honestly, this was a terrible game by Keely Ringo. I did say that earlier on. It wasn't even just Kayshon Boutte. Lacey, Jeray Jenkins was getting open. Malik Neighbors, too. Keely looked lost today. I'm just going to bank off the fact that it was just a bad game. So, why do backup QBs always look alien against our secondary? Well, I'll tell you this much. Number one, that's kind of a bold statement simply because most of the teams that put in their backup QBs are the teams that are that have pretty good rosters. Garrett Nussmeier was a high 4-star recruit coming out of high school. Had a little bit of game experience last year when Max Johnson was hurt. But yeah, I understand this. Tua, we had the Tua and the Jalen Hurts thing, 2017, 2018. What other backup QB am I missing, to be honest with you? So, yeah. Now Nussmeier, but we got the job done today. That's, honestly, that's kind of all that it matters. You're 13-0. Listen, you can nitpick every little thing. The bottom line is Georgia's one of two. Actually, currently the only team in the nation that is 13-0. But one of 2 undefeated teams left in the nation. You know how hard that is to do. First time that we've ever even got to 13-0. So, yeah, I would say it is frustrating, but we got the job done today. That's all that matters. I knew LSU would give everything they had today. That's just what Brian Kelly teams do, even after a devastating loss. Like I said earlier, we could be talking about a 10-3 LSU team. Let's just say they do beat Texas A&M. A 10-3 LSU team, comparing that to Alabama and Ohio State, or sorry, not Ohio State, and TCU. I guess you could throw Ohio State in there as well for the final 2 spots, obviously, but I'm pretty sure Ohio State's getting in. I'm pretty sure it's all set. I think it's going to be 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 Ohio State, 4 TCU. In my opinion, I don't see the point of keeping TCU at number 3 if they just lost the game. You could say the same thing about Ohio State. Well, they don't deserve to be in the top 3 because they just lost their last game. That's what I'm saying. The deserving and the best 4 teams are like 2 objective things that when you try to, mix, they just don't work out. This what we see year in, year out. You're either going to have a committee that wants the best 4 teams like they did in 2017, or they're just going to put the 4 most deserving teams like they did in 2018, or pretty much insert another year. Last year, I will say the best 4 teams in college football were more than likely the 4 teams that were in the playoff. You could say what you want about Cincinnati, but Ohio State had 2 losses up to that point, and I'm going to be honest with you, that would probably be a good game. Now Cincinnati didn't have the talent, but I'm not gonna say Luke Fickell is a better coach than Ryan Day, but Luke Fickell might be. To be honest with you, I don't want to hate on Ryan Day, but because we might end up playing Ohio State, which would be a good matchup. The 2 most talented teams in the nation going head to head, technically on a neutral field, but pretty much a Georgia home game. Now Ohio State fans do travel, though. They do travel. Yeah. That would be interesting. And that could end up being the national title game. But Michigan just kicked off with Purdue. I'm still pretty confident that Michigan is, a top 2 team as they get a 7-yard loss on the first play. Great job by Michigan's defense. But yeah, we've seen Michigan. We've seen Georgia play. Both teams are honestly fairly similar. Both teams have a really good offensive and defensive line. Quarterbacks kind of a difference. Both have pretty good rush games, and both can throw the football when needed. And Georgia likes to throw the football, though. A little bit more than Michigan. We have a lot more screen passes and a lot more sweep passes than almost any other team in the nation, to be honest with you. That's just Georgia. That's just Todd Monken's offense. I think LSU's D is more talented than Michigan's. I would say it's pretty close. Dang, man. Michigan, oh my gosh, already on a 3-and-out. Yeah, Michigan's going to destroy Purdue. Feel bad for Purdue. This game's not even going to be close. But I would say it's fairly close, but obviously the schemes are different. Michigan's way more aggressive. They're way more aggressive, and their D-line is fairly equal to LSU. I will be honest with you. LSU has a really, really, really underrated defensive line. They just couldn't do anything against Georgia today. And you know what? That's no shame because a lot of people can't. So a lot of teams can't. Wow, what a catch by North Carolina. But yeah, guys, college football playoff. The rankings come out tomorrow. Let me know you guys' top 4. I mean, I think it's pretty much set. I just don't know who's going to be 3 and who's going to be 4. Like I said, I would give the edge Ohio State at 3, put TCU at 4. That would give us the matchup that we would more than likely want. But I don't know. I'm not the committee. The committee has this is why I'm pretty sure they're going to put TCU at number 4 because they haven't given TCU respect all year. And to be real with you, TCU's had like 6 or 7 games that have ended within 10 points that could have gone either way. So even today, obviously, but even against bad teams, TCU has struggled. So, but yeah, TCU, Ohio State, UGA, Michigan. I think I'm pretty sure with that too. The only thing is seeding. I think it's set. I really do think it's set. The committee doesn't even have to watch these 2 games. They know where they're going to put teams. They're probably going to be watching these. Like I said, Clemson, North Carolina. The only reason you need to watch this game is for placing. Who gets the Orange Bowl and who gets the whatever bowl. But anyway, TCU already beat Kansas State and took them to OT. Oh, and then took them to OT. Here's the thing on this. TCU was down 28-10 at home against Kansas State before Kansas State's second-string QB at the time went down. So Kansas State was down to the third-string QB and couldn't get a yard. Couldn't even get a yard. When Will Howard went down, Adrian Martinez went down first. Then Will Howard went down. Then they bring in a true freshman that's never played before. And, well, he looked terrible. And Kansas State ended up losing the game. Could not get a yard. Were fumbling. I think the QB also threw an interception. They had like 3 first downs all the second half. Like, that's how bad their offense was in the second half and without their 2 starting QBs. And I will include Will Howard and Adrian Martinez as the 2 starters because they both looked pretty good all year for Kansas State. So the committee they will also have that on the back of their mind. Now, when you're comparing that to Alabama has 2 losses. That came down. They lost at the last second of both games. Lost on a last-second field goal. I would be honest with you, a fluke loss to Tennessee and a fluke loss to LSU. They really should have been – well, here's the thing. You could argue that they should be 12-0, and you could argue that they could be 8-4. They could have lost to Texas. They should have lost to Texas A&M. They should have lost to they obviously lost to LSU and Tennessee, and then even Ole Miss. Now that game was more in Alabama's hands than the other four, but they could have lost those games. So, but you also here's another. There's an interesting stat, and I always bring this up. Scoring margin of victory should matter. A lot of people tell me it doesn't. Margin of victory is also a good representation of eye test. Now, Bama was top 5 in the nation as a 2-loss team in margin of victory, where they won by an average of 21.7 points per game. And TCU took a loss today, so they're looking at somewhere around 11 or 12 points. And that's including what they did against Iowa State, which they won by 50 points. So you have to take that into account too. All these little things need to be taken into account. This LSU loss looks even worse. LSU's just a very inconsistent team, but Georgia's really good. You got to give Georgia credit where credit is due. Georgia's played their 5 best games against the 5 top 25 teams that they played. Georgia now has, I think, 5, right? Mississippi State, South Carolina, LSU, Oregon, Tennessee. Yep, 5 top 25 teams. Georgia has beaten now. And if you watch Georgia in all 5 of those games, they not only dominated, but they've looked relatively pretty good. Okay? Today, you can make an exception with their second half defense, which honestly, I'd rather see that than the offense struggle because of how good our defense is and how good our defense has been all year. I would rather have that struggle today than the offense. That just shows more of improvement with the offense and how much better our offense is this year than even last year when our offense was still top 15. Georgia now has a top 5 offense. Top 5 offense, top 5 defense. So I know a lot of people don't want to give Georgia credit, but there's that. You got to look at the stats. Statistically, Georgia's obviously in that top 2, and there's no question. But I think they edge out anybody for number 1. For a lot of people that wanted to put Michigan at number 1, I think the committee puts TCU in over Bama, but that's just my 2 thoughts. 2-loss teams are usually out. Yeah, they're always out, simply because there's always 4 or 5 teams that usually have 1 loss. But this is where I bring in the factors of the best 4 teams or the 4 most deserving teams. Like I said, you can't put Ohio State in if it's the 4 most deserving, okay? That's just my opinion, but hey, simply because they finished second in their conference, which the Big Ten has the second best team or maybe even the best team, right? But, like I said, I don't, but the top 4 teams, I think Bama is better than TCU. I think Bama is better than anybody else. Well, I guess it's only considered TCU, but anyone else that had a slight chance, okay? So we'll see what the committee does. They usually do what they do all year, which they've been disrespecting TCU all season until Ohio State finally lost and until teams above them started to lose. Remember, TCU was number 7 in the initial playoff rankings. That was the last place out of all the undefeated teams, and that was, guess what? That was a spot behind Bama. Bama has a shot, guys. Bama has a shot at getting into the playoffs simply because of the first initial playoff rankings. They had a 7-1 Bama ahead of an 8-0 TCU. That's just what they did. So in the back of my mind, I think they might just throw Bama in. But I digress. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching today. Make sure you guys go like and subscribe to this channel and the SEC football at the Voice of College Football channel, as well as Mark Rogers TV channel. And if you're new, go ahead and sign up with Mark Rogers' Patreon page. Just search up Mark Rogers TV on Patreon. He has all exclusive content over there on Patreon. They do a really good job. He even has expert picks, and including his picks, which Mark Rogers is obviously one of the most knowledgeable guys on YouTube. So anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. We'll see where Georgia or who Georgia is playing on December 31st. Like I said, more than likely it's going to be TCU. That's where my money is at right now. I could see Bama. I could see Ohio State. And a lot of people will be pissed off if Bama makes it. But anyways, guys. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you after the first playoff game on December 31st. Have a good one, guys. Go Dogs.